great ruler, it said, was sealed in a bronze model of his world, at the heart of the largest mausoleum on Earth, surrounded by rivers and seas of flowing mercury. And so the legend remained for over 2,000 years. Now, Professor Jeffrey Regal is hoping that new experimental archaeology will unlock the secrets of the tomb and finally reveal the truth behind the legend of the Emperor. For the first time, archaeologists are probing the mound, and Regal hopes to be able to answer centuries-old questions. Is the Emperor's tomb actually there? Has it been plundered? And could it, as the legend says, really contain rivers and seas of flowing mercury? Since the moment he became king, Ying Jian has planned for his own death. A tomb is being constructed, which by tradition will contain replicas of his most precious possessions, including his army.
Good.
That tradition will continue,
Very good.
but on a scale no one has ever seen before.
How big is this supposed to be? Well, it's a simple question. How big is this supposed to be?
One of the most incredible aspects of the Terracotta Army is size. Not just the army itself, but every single soldier. Each figure measures 6 feet tall, an army of giants by the standards of the time. Chinese kings were known to bury miniature terracotta soldiers as spirit guards for the afterlife. Never a full-sized army with state-of-the-art weapons.
He felt that in death, that the spirits of his enemies might actually attempt to attack him, and so he needed a spirit army. These clay soldiers whose very substance would last forever, he would need them in order to protect him from these spiritual enemies that he'd had before.
But it seems even the Terracotta Army was not enough. With the Empire secure, he turns his eyes to the fulfillment of his next great vision, sending thousands more workers to build a tomb, befitting the first divine ruler of all of China. Today, all that can be seen is a vast earthen mound, as big as the great Egyptian pyramid at Giza. The first clue to its possible contents was the Terracotta Army, but that was nearly a mile from the tomb mound. When archaeologists dug into the space in between, an incredible world opened up. To date, they have found over 180 separate pits, containing so much more than soldiers. Hundreds of terracotta dancers, musicians, and acrobats were built to the same exacting standards as the Emperor's precious army. And the imperial craftsmen, freed from making weapons, created perfect birds to stand in the artificial lakes of buried gardens. And perhaps the most exquisite bronze artifact ever found, a half-scale model of the imperial chariot to convey the Emperor in his underground world.
The burial mound, it turns out, is in fact at the center of an enormous necropolis, an above-ground and underground city for the first emperor. It would provide him, it would continue to provide him with all of the trappings of power, with all of the protection that someone of his status required.
But there was no way to see the ultimate symbol of power, the tomb itself. Yet again, it was the ancient official history that provided the only clue. But this time, the account seemed too incredible to take at face value.
令将作记录时有所权尽者，既设之。The emperor sent more than 700,000 convicts to dig down through 3 rivers and fill it with bronze.
On the floor of the vault, there was created a map of his entire empire, all of China.
He had artisans stick jewels into the ceiling to represent the sky, the cosmos above.
The streams, the ocean, the text said, were filled with quicksilver, with liquid mercury.
He had some kind of machine which circulated that mercury to imitate the actual flowing of the waters.
That it would be a kind of water clock, a machine, and that as long as it kept running, the emperor would continue to exist in his enclosed world.
A bronze tomb filled with liquid mercury. The idea seems beyond fantasy. The weight of the mercury alone would be more than 500 tons. Even though China has mercury ore in abundance, how could one man command such resources? And could it be proved? The tomb of the first emperor of China has been sealed for over 2,000 years. But there is a way in. Using a new combination of techniques, including ground-penetrating radar, electrical resistance measurements, and core samples, the research team under Duan Qingbo have been able to build up a 3-dimensional model of the entire complex. Beginning with the outer walls of the necropolis. And revealing for the first time the mausoleum structure hidden beneath the mound. An early surprise was that the mausoleum appears as a vast divided pyramid, with passages leading to the tomb from the east and west. And when they took the all-important readings from the ground underneath the pyramid, they discovered the tomb itself, seen here as a clearly defined area marked in blue. An underground space hermetically sealed for over 2,000 years. It measures as big as a football field. And though at first the pyramid appeared to be a solid closed structure covering over the tomb, the outer surface of the tomb's roof is in fact open to the sky. Or it would be, if it hadn't been covered by 1 million tons of earth 2,000 years ago. Duan and his team have been probing that earth for almost a decade, tracing the shape of the pyramid beneath their feet with a series of 4,000 core samples. And each one, Jeffrey Regal realized, could potentially hold an incredible piece of evidence direct from the tomb itself. Because if there was mercury there, over the centuries, mercury vapor could seep through the roof and into the surrounding soil, where Regal hopes they may be able to detect it.
啊，
那是什么？
到了夯层了。
啊，大了夯土。
嗯，
啊。
这下边是个夯层那个底面。
Samples of this sort enable us to see the supporting structure, the rammed earth structure that's supporting the entire mound. But of course, what really interests us is what is the burial like. So, if the legend about the emperor having placed in the base of his tomb a map of all of China, of all of his empire with rivers of flowing mercury, if that legend is true, then we can expect that a test of this soil will tell us whether or not it's true, will either provide us with corroboration or won't.
The Chinese archaeologists have no immediate plans to excavate the tomb. They have no way yet to preserve its contents, and no desire to disturb the emperor's spirit. So for the foreseeable future, the mercury test may be their only way to understand what's inside. Each of the 4,000 soil samples from the tomb mound has to be individually analyzed for mercury content. That process has been ongoing and is almost complete. 4,000 soil samples taken from the tomb mound of the first emperor have been tested and checked at Beijing University for traces of mercury. Now, Jeffrey Regal is about to see what could be the greatest revelation since the discovery of the Terracotta Army. He's come to meet Dr. Liu, who's been processing the samples, and the results are ready. The first piece of news is that there is mercury there, in huge concentrations. And it's not just found anywhere. Each red dot is a core sample, each blue one where mercury is found, and the dark blue show the highest concentrations. And all of it within the actual tomb, just as the ancient historians said, laid out in the shape of his empire.